Baker's dozen. All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Processing with Sam and Malik, a weekly take on life through the lens of husbands, fathers, Philly sports fans, and most importantly, believers. As always, this episode is brought to you by Sam's Community TV, creating content to establish a community through genuine relationship building. Before we start tonight's show, I want to ask that you please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification button. Subscription allows you to stay connected to our community, and the notification button will notify you anytime one of our episodes are airing so that you can join us. And as always, folks, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link in the comments section right now. For anyone who would like to join us, all we ask is that you're willing to get on camera. And if you get on camera, then you can join us for any of the topics that we discuss tonight. But first and foremost, Malik, how are we doing tonight, man?
Man, it's Monday. Good. This past weekend, I got a chance to go celebrate a college roommate's wedding.
You got a chance to go celebrate who?
A college roommate from college.
Wedding.
His wedding, yeah. So, it's weather did every single thing to try to delay. I was delayed on Thursday, canceled on Thursday, delayed on Friday, delayed and canceled again, coming back. But it was really good to see him, really good to spend time with them, to kind of see the people at this stage in their life. He and his wife have been actually married for 3.5 years already, but this was kind of like the celebration, COVID and other things happening. So It was really good to just kind of see them. And then the fact that they really wanted to still bring people together, which was pretty dope. So it was really a festive occasion, man. It was a good weekend.
Try another pair of shoes.
How about yourself? Oh, yeah. You got to change those up, man.
Hey, let me ask you something, man. What is it like attending, a friend from college's wedding at this stage in your life? What is that? How is that experience? Being that I'm sure you've attended weddings, right out of college as well, right?
Yeah. So he doesn't have children. He and his wife are obviously a little bit older. There's a different energy and maturity about it. The other part about it is that when you see it's a smaller gathering, and I think what invariably happens is that somebody pulls you aside and is like, "Hey Sam, how you doing, man? Y'all good? You all right?" So like rather than it being like the superficial, just kind of keep it moving. Hey man, I'm good. Life is whatever. I'm straight. You start to have like conversations with people like, "Hey, how's work? Is your mom okay?" And it's like, you doing all right with the kids?" There was a lot of those kind of like discreet conversations. You still drink and dance and party and all that, but there's a lot more like moments of like kind of nuance there. It's different.
Yeah. No, I understand that, man. I think as we get older, we have a different understanding of life, and so the questions probably would change. What our interests are in people sort of changes a bit. That's pretty cool, though. How am I doing? I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Excited to get on the show tonight. A lot to talk about. And so I figured, without further ado, let's kind of jump into things.
That's right.
Forgive me, folks. I didn't cue us up as usual.
All good.
But it is all good because we're going to talk about Daryl Morey at a press conference today.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know but should, Daryl Morey is the president of basketball operations for your Philadelphia 76ers. And in his press conference, he essentially offered us insight into what the off-season plan and strategy will be.
He wasn't trying to hide the ball at all.
No, so Daryl Morey speaks. Question is, what do you think, man?
So Daryl Morey, I think, is a smart enough person to know that you can't say certain things directly because of obviously rules violations and how accessible every single word in the media is at this point. But he basically said, "I'm going to take my chance with top level players, try to fill out the bottom of the roster. It's fun for me." So he was like alluding to Kyle Lowry and Kelly Oubre this past season. And then he was talking about the names that we've seen kind of floated around where you're talking about Paul George or maybe Jimmy Butler, who was apparently already lighting himself on fire in Miami. And then you see Brandon Ingram. So The Sixers are big game hunting again. We start hunting again.
So here's the interesting thing. I do agree that the Sixers seem to be star hunting again. I do think that Daryl Morey has a ton of flexibility and options in terms of his approach and strategy. One thing is for certain. He did call out one position
Wing
specifically, and he said he wants a wing that can get it done, get their shots in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's very specific. So the reason I like those kinds of conversations is because that you can measure him against. It's, everything else, it's hard to say whether or not he hit or missed on it, right? If he's talking about how to fill out the team, the best players to go around his core, which he sees is obviously Joel and Tyrese. I personally like the fact that you got a Ricky Council on long term. So for those who don't know, the 4 roster spots currently held by the Sixers are B-Ball Paul, Ricky Council, the 4th, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid. Everyone else, there's no spot. So everyone it's free. They have a chance to sort of start over. And there's no secret that I think we're going to re-sign, or at least attempt to re-sign guys that were already on the team. However, he also stated matter-of-factly that they're not going to have a lot of continuity.
No.
And he talked about other teams that made playoff and championship runs, i.e. the Toronto Raptors, that also didn't have the same level of continuity but got done. So Daryl Morey, one thing I do appreciate about what he said today is when they tried to nail him down to a strategy, he's like, look, man, we're all throwing something against the wall. There is no one way to get it done. When it comes down to it, is do you have better players than they have? So I thought that was an interesting.
So in all of that, with limited continuity, then we're talking about them bringing in a ton of new guys, because you're not going to be able to maintain everyone. I'm sure there are certain numbers that these players have in mind. I don't know what Kelly Oubre is looking to get. He was a minimum player this past season. He is definitely not going to be a minimum player into the coming season. So you got guys like him, D'Anthony Melton, Batum. All of these guys have value. But if you don't go out and make your big splash early, particularly for that wing, that third star that you're talking about, he said he absolutely believes that Embiid and Maxey are your top 2. You can win a championship with Maxey as a top 2 player, right? Maxey's going to absolutely get extended. He's going to get his extension. It's going to be fantastic, right? So we're going to have him. I believe he probably saved the Sixers season in terms of long-term, because if this didn't go well because of Harden at the beginning of the year and all the changes that were going on, Embiid probably leaves here and is like, I'm out if Maxey wasn't who Maxey became to be. So thank God for him. That said, I don't know that I really like the names though.
Which name?
I don't. Are you excited about the name? Are you excited about Butler? Are you excited about a potential 3 to 4 year Jimmy Butler contract extension where he's going to play 50 some odd games? He's not as athletic as he was when he was here a couple years ago. He is obviously an indomitable force in terms of will, but he's not going to get it in the continuity of the offense, right? He stops the ball. He's not a volume shooter or scorer, although he can be, but it's more going to be him one-on-one. Not that he's not great, but I don't know that I want him at 34 for 4 years. He's making $49-50 million now. Do you want that going forward? And then Paul George, I don't know. Like, I'm looking at the NBA and I'm seeing a bunch of dudes out here who are just straight young bulls who are getting right now.
See, this is a tricky situation, because I see where you're going, and I think unfortunately we have a general manager who's stuck on those names.
Yeah.
Stuck on what he knows in terms of, listen, they talked to him about Ricky Council, and he pretty much said, hey, listen, expect to see some production from him in year 3, unless there are injuries. That's how it usually works. And that to me is a little bit, and he said based off of sort of where he was drafted. And that kind of ideology is what I have such an issue with when it comes to the NBA. Where you come in is where you are slotted for perpetuity unless you just get some huge opportunity. Not because you're actually not able to get it done, but because the league is designed in a way where you just won't get that opportunity. This guy says at the end of the press conference that one of our young players, they're just talking about what his growth might be in year 2. He said, yeah, expect it more in year 3. I'm going to get a veteran team. He's probably not going to play. And it's just like, if this is how we're going into an offseason, it sets the stage to me where you don't have full competition. You got to have full competition. Guys got to know that they have a shot. And if your GM is saying, listen, the way I'm going to build this team, the guy that you all like, not next year, but the year after, because what I'm trying to win now. Who's not to say that he can't be part of that conversation next year? And I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but it's something that I've always lamented in terms of coaches getting short on their rotations when it matters most, not trusting younger players, not giving guys just the boost of energy, not exhausting your whole roster in those critical moments. To me, it's just about a master contractor who's willing to use every tool in his toolbox when it calls it. Yes, you might be a hammer guy and that's your go-to, but every now and again you got to bring out a screwdriver. Like it's just what it calls for. So that to me was a little bit disappointing. The other part is that he was also fairly transparent about what his expectations of Maxey were and what actually happened with Maxey. And I don't think that they were parallel. Because he said, if you were to poll other GMs, I don't think that they saw the same kind of jump this year out of Maxey that he made. Part of it had to do with, Joel Embiid going down, and he was able to take this huge jump. This helps us in terms of our planning, but I don't know if they knew Maxey was going to be Maxey, and I think
he gave no sense. There was no impression based on his comments today that he expected this, that he knew what he had.
I'm sorry.
Not at all.
That was my bad. I teased it. Sorry, folks. Stay tuned. But right. Yeah. And you see, and here's why that's a bit of a problematic statement to say or admit at this stage, being that you've just played the whole season. Only you knew that. You didn't have to let us know that you didn't know who he was, right? Because from a fan perspective, that's been our gripe. When they benched him his rookie year, Doc had him on the bench and then turned him into a sixth man. It's just like, Doc, what are we doing here? Why are you not growing the young player? But you realize it is a top-down thought around how young players come aboard. And it's all depending on where you're drafted. If they draft high enough, they'll play them. Because I think it's contract associated.
So he did kind of go into that.
He did.
Where it's like you're not gonna get the opportunity based on where he was kind of coming from, right? So he is obviously mired in that space. But with that in mind, who was he going to go grab? Are you
and that's why to me he is limiting his own ability, because it's one thing to say that if you have a roster full of players. But if you only have 4 players on your roster currently, and you're already drawing a line in the sand that this person is not going to be part of what will help us next year. Yes, I think, now I see it 2 ways. Yes, if I'm a coach, don't put me in a position where I have to rely on a second-year player, right? Like, if you want me to win a championship, then Ricky Council can't be my calling card when rubber meets the road. So I do understand it from that perspective. He's saying, look, he's young, he's talented, but we're going for it now. So I need guys now.
Their window is now.
Their window is now. And he said that in so many ways. So even as I talk through it right now, I do understand his perspective of saying, if I'm saying we're all in for a championship, then I can't also say we're going to rely heavily on Ricky Council next year to get it done.
Right.
Even if it were to happen, it can't be this is the plan. Both things can't be true. So Daryl, I got it. Yeah, you got me. You got me there.
So if Paul George shows up here with a 4-year, $200 million contract, what's your reaction?
If Paul George shows up with a 4-year, $200 million contract, to me, you better get the right glue guys.
Are you excited to
play?
Let's deal with it in pieces, Sam. Are you excited first for the Paul George acquisition?
I am excited for the Paul George acquisition, yes, because I think as I'm watching listen, I just watched the Knicks versus the Pacers. If the Sixers had Paul George, we'd be back, what do we call it, moon dancing on these teams. The way that these teams have to manufacture points. If we had the elite playmakers of a Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey all on the same team, we're running through the second round. Like, I'm watching this game and I'm watching, like, you see how New York creates shots, right? They have to they grind through possessions to get shots. And they have to, usually it takes them 1.5 shots to get a score, right? Like, they get an offensive rebound in there somewhere as part of just how they score. Then you have this other team that is like, they're throwing full court passes, man. They're getting like quick outlets to watch Indiana play. It's fascinating watching styles of basketball because you have the slow pace Knicks versus the up pace Pacers. The game went into the 120s, so obviously the Pacers they created the type of flow, if you will. Like it was the Pacers style of game because the Knicks don't score 120 points. So it was a Pacers style game. The Knicks won it, but it was fascinating to watch. With that said, a playmaker like a Joel Embiid, a healthy Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey, it's no contest. I don't care who the others are. It matters. It matters. And I think if there's anything the Sixers should learn is when they played the Knicks, we had too many guys that couldn't get on the court against that team. You have to make sure your roster has a few more players that can play that brand of basketball as well. You have to know what Joel Embiid's limitations are. Bring in Paul George. He's not an excellent rebounder, so there's still a hole there. So whoever your off guard is, it has to be somebody who is willing to mix it up on the glass. I would like to see a defensive-minded guy. I have another perspective outside of Paul George, but I'm curious in terms of, your thoughts if Paul George came in 4 years, $200 million.
You know what? I appreciate the fact that he is one of the probably 30 best players in the NBA. I don't know that he makes us any different. I don't know some of the things that we have talked about with the Sixers has been there's a certain leadership that maybe Embiid doesn't have or doesn't demonstrate, right? That Jimmy Butler does, right? That Captain America is the leader of the Avengers because he gets it, right? He does. Thor is the most powerful, but Captain America is your leader somehow. Paul George doesn't do anything for us there. Right. He's not the winner. I mean, when he was a young player in Indiana, it was probably like a David West was the guy out there back then, right? Then when he goes to the Clippers, he's never been the guy, and he's not really put his footprint on the league, except for the fact that he's incredibly talented. But I wonder if there's some athletic decline, right? Sure. I mean, his ability, and it's not because he's not incredibly gifted still. He's 33, he's older, he's had some age, he's had some injuries, whatever it is. But I don't know that I'm looking at him and thinking, yeah, he's a consistent scorer. He's got the ability to score. But I don't know that I feel like that team, that group contends with Boston still, right? Depending on the pieces. I don't know that group contends with, Minnesota right now because they're next if they're not now. So, right? So
yeah,
it doesn't resonate for me. Like I wouldn't be over the moon about a Paul George or Jimmy Butler for that matter.
Be over the moon about? Is there anyone who puts you over the moon? Let me ask it that way.
So there are two names I would be more intrigued by. I would definitely be more intrigued by three names probably, but I recognize you'd have to give up something to get two of these dudes. I think Brandon Ingram is an interesting name. I think a guy who has that ability and height to score. And again, he's not going to be the leader that we just were talking about. but I think he kind of fits in seamlessly with his ability to, from distance, create mismatches, whatever it is. He's younger. It seems like New Orleans is kind of falling out of favor. He's falling out of favor in New Orleans, where they're going more towards Zion. It'd be interesting to see what that looks like and had that core going forward. And then I think you can go ahead and supplement him with, a rugged dude at the 4 and a guy at the 2 who could probably, like a D'Anthony Melton, can slide, right? And then you have Oubre off the bench. I think you've got a good group if you have someone like him. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna have to give up a lot for someone like Mikal Bridges. I don't think Brooklyn's interested in doing it. I'd be calling and very curious to see what happens in Phoenix. The Sixers, in addition to their cap flexibility, have several first-round picks,
KD.
which I absolutely believe can be utilized. You talk about all of the tools in your bag, right? KD. So, I'm sorry?
You're talking about KD in Phoenix?
I'm calling about everybody but Beal. Everybody but Beal. So if
have a Booker, but a Booker, Maxey, Embiid,
I would give up literally
on that team.
I'm sorry?
Do you need a point guard on that team? Is Maxey your point guard?
Max is my point guard. I would give up every first round pick and the Liberty Bell
for Booker.
For Booker, yeah. I would.
I don't know.
I would. I think Booker has Booker, not this season, because I think there's been too much around it, right? With injuries and inserting Beal, and we were waiting on guys to get healthy. But Booker last season started to show like, I'm one of those dudes. And
right. But then when you play around other dudes, it's like, like that's part of it, because you're trying to put him around other dudes.
I think
by yourself.
Well, I think, I'm not as high on, I think he was diminished personally because they had no point guard. They had nobody on the team that even thought about being a point guard, one. And I think Beal was just off injured. And I think this is going to sound terrible, but for lack of a better term, dragged the team down, to be honest with you. He had moments, but he was wildly inconsistent. And they just didn't have any flow because there were too many overlapping parts. Really. I mean, you had guys.
I understand why Phoenix wasn't good this year. And it's funny because I'm listening to like all these pundits just bash Phoenix. When going into the season, everyone kind of expected this from them because they said they had to give up so much to put the team together that year 2 is when it's going to count. Because it's like they had to give up all the glue guys to put this roster together. So I just find it funny how the season happens and now all of it, and they somehow end up being a 6th seed in that treacherous Western Conference, right? And then all of a sudden everyone slams them because they get, out in the first round, when everyone realized, listen, you're playing against a team that has a lot more gritty guys, just like the Sixers and the Knicks. They played against a team that has a different brand of basketball that will muck it up a little bit more, and they didn't have those types of guys on their team.
You know who I would be in for? Who I would be like, all right, now I'm paying attention. And it's going to sound stupid, super stupid. Go get LeBron James.
I listen, that's where I was going to go.
Go get LeBron James. Like if we're building for the future, I would give up everything in the world for Booker.
That's where I would go because LeBron can play off of both of those guys. He can make sure Maxey goes hard and gets 40 points a game. He can make sure Embiid gets the easiest 50 points a game he'll ever see. He'll put everybody else in the right position.
That's what I want.
There is no issue in terms of the non-Joel Embiid minutes because you just have LeBron James on the floor. Like you don't, and that's all I was trying. I had a in-depth conversation watching the Sixers lose that game and about this whole non-Joel Embiid stuff. And a friend of mine kept talking about we need to get a backup center. And I'm like, this has been the core issue with how the Sixers have always tried to approach this non-Joel Embiid minutes issue. It's not about one player. You have to have a concept of how you are approaching the non-Joel Embiid minutes, and it's more than just a single player. So when we keep trying to solve it by putting in a good backup, I'm not saying you don't need a serviceable backup. I'm saying that that's not how you solve the non-Joel Embiid minutes. To me, having a LeBron James helps you solve the non-Joel Embiid minutes. Now you can play a different style of basketball that features a different player that the teams have to adjust for. It's not about Joel Embiid. It's not about missing Joel Embiid anymore. And I think that's where the Sixers keep getting into trouble. And the problem is because the regular season is so different from the playoffs, they're always ill prepared because they go to regular seasons where he doesn't play fourth quarters. They think they're fine. They think they have these two ways of playing without him, blah, 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 blah. But we know in the playoffs, when they're game planning, no, you're going to need him on the court. And you realize you don't have another way to play without him.
Yeah.
And therein lies the rub every single time. So I think if, hopefully this group really looks at this team saying, hey, if Joel is getting older, if we know he's off injured, how do we truly solve for him not being available? And it is not finding an Andre Drummond. It isn't, because Tyrese Maxey, as talented as he is, he also struggles when he is the only guy. Tyrese Maxey is a good 2. He's a really good 2, but his offensive game still has some limitations, where as a 1, you can load up on him and he doesn't look very comfortable. But if you have a LeBron James on the court with him, it'll only free him up, right? Like LeBron is the guy you can play with Maxey. He's a guy you can play with Embiid. It's a and then if you got to use your 16th pick to draft the young pup, that's what you do. You draft Bronny with the 16th pick, and then you still have the rest of the slots to think how many guys you still who not going to want to come back to Philadelphia. You can probably get Marcus Morris Sr. back. You can get Kelly Oubre. If you wanted Kyle Lowry, get him. Maybe Pat Bev is available, because I don't know what's going on with up in him and how he ended his season up in Milwaukee. That was weird. He had the issue where he threw the ball at the fan because the fan said Cancun on 3.
And then how about
reporter, and now ESPN is banning him from being on the network. It's like I think he really had a rough time leaving Philadelphia. So Pat Bev, if you want to come home, brother, you can always come home.
Yo, that was wild though, man. That was wild that that was real it seemed out of pocket that he would tell somebody, are you a subscriber to my podcast though? Like, what are we doing?
It was weird.
And like, you need to leave?
It was strange. It was strange. And it was, I don't know. I have no comment because I've never seen anything like that before. But it seemed bizarre. And when you put it in perspective of, right after he has an incident where he throws a ball at a fan, it's like, okay, his frustrations must have been very, very high. But that kind of behavior is just bizarre. And, they're going to come down heavy on him. So, good luck with the pod, Join our pod, brother. We'll have you on. Make sure you get those views. So, we'll see what the Sixers do, man. I think LeBron is an option. I wouldn't be mine if we looked at a guy like Caruso. I think when we see a game like the Knicks, a team like the Knicks that aren't going anywhere, you see a team like Miami that may or may not get better. The Jimmy Butler scenario does cause me a little bit concerned just because of his age. So that one, and you and I share that issue. Paul George, I'm more comfortable with, but when I'm watching all of these young teams fly up and down the court, I don't want to be the old team. That it might behoove us to look at a Brandon Ingram and then just still bring in a veteran leadership around those guys, So I think that the Sixers have a lot of options. Daryl Morey, absolutely. I know he's 4 years into his 8-year deal, but this is the year. This is the year to let us know who you actually are. This is it. This offseason, no distractions. The world is literally your oyster in terms of how you want to build out this roster. You got no excuses, man. You have a budding star in Tyrese Maxey. You have a guy who would have, if he played both seasons, would have been a back-to-back MVP. You got no excuses, man. Make it happen. Well, a team that's playing like they have no excuses, the Philadelphia Phillies. Are the Philadelphia Phillies the best in the bigs?
The record tells you so. The record definitely tells you so. Their starting pitching absolutely makes the case as well.
10th straight win tonight.
I want to believe so badly, but I mean, I was talking to my wife. My wife is I don't know if you know this. My wife is a ball girl at one point in time.
No, for
so
she's not from Philadelphia, correct?
No, she's not. But when she moved there, we used to go when obviously I was a big fan of whatever it is, and she got really invested. And so she had played softball.
She was a ball girl for the Phillies?
Yeah.
Get out of here, man.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of here.
He's a ball girl for the Phillies. My cousin also was a ball girl for the Phillies. So we got the pathway. But we were talking about it earlier, and this has a late 2000s vibe. So when the Phillies were right there before the World Series run, they had gotten to the playoffs. They got to the playoffs and got rolled by the Rockies, right? And then they came back and they won the World Series. So it was kind of the maturation before. This group has been together and has been good, and obviously has gone to the World Series and fell short last year. But now we're starting to see Alec Bohm step forward. We're starting to see Bryson Stott step forward. Ranger Suarez. It's so fascinating because Zach Wheeler's and Aaron Nola, we know 1-2, but past years Suarez has come in where he had visa issues one year. He was coming off an injury another year, so he was going into the season kind of unstable. And we're seeing him be the Ranger in May that we've seen and kind of come to expect in September. And he's running with that. And then never mind the fact that you got Christian Sanchez, who's been reliable. The Phillies have 6 arms right now that are competitive. And it's remarkable.
The Sixers. Here we go. Look at you.
Yeah, we'll move on from that.
On that track. The Phillies are no joke. It's 10 straight wins. The best record in the bigs. I mean, I don't remember when the Phillies had the best record in baseball.
You're looking at the team that lost when Ryan Howard blew out his Achilles. Was that 2011? That's you going back that far.
Got it.
And so I don't know if this will happen. What I do know is that you've got leadership in Dombrowski and an owner in Middleton that's going to absolutely go out. And if this team needs something to give them that slight edge, we're going to see that.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was another kind of competitive bat brought in. Another right-handed bat. Castellanos has been grinding, but not great. Bohm has been exceptional, but you kind of do lack power from that side.
Right.
So, not that I'm lamenting Reese, but you kind of are missing that threat from that side of the plate.
Yeah. You mean with Castellanos struggling?
Castellanos struggling. You don't have a right-handed power at all. Real Muto's been batting up in the lineup. He's been competing, but he's not going to hit you 30 home runs. Castellanos has been staying on the ball a little bit longer, so he looks like he's going to get a rhythm, but I'm not sure what he's going to be in the postseason. Bohm has been on a tear, despite his hitting streak ending tonight, but I don't see him actually being the home run guy yet. He may grow into that. So he is going to give you competitive at-bats. He's going to put the ball in play. He's going to hit the ball for power opposite directions, but I'm not sure he's hitting it out of the park yet. And the Phillies have so often been dependent on the threat of a 3-run home run. And they don't have that from the right side right now.
Man, I'm looking at our pitchers and their ERAs, man. See a Zach Wheeler with a 1.64, Ranger Suarez 1.72, Aaron Nola 3.32, Spencer, was it Turnbull?
Turnbull, yeah.
Turnbull 1.67. Like this is Sanchez 3.68. Hoffman, he got out there 1.1. I mean, this is and then they get bats. This team is so complete. They got a bunch of dudes. Like it is so reminiscent of the teams of old where we just had a star-studded team. And I mean, even think about when we got the big four in terms of our pitchers, right?
Mm-hmm.
When that team was assembled, that fell short of winning the whole thing. And that honestly, in that series against the Yankees, I still look at Charlie Manuel a little bit in that series. I just thought that there was a game where he could have went out to the mound to really settle his guys down because the Yankees kept doing it. Their skipper kept coming out. It was Girardi, I think. He kept slowing the game down, and we just never did it. And I just felt it was a game in New York, and I just felt like that's when the tide turned for us, and we lost our confidence a bit. That's just how I felt watching it.
Well, I think that's where we are now, where these guys have grown. I mean, there seems like an urgency and expectation to get back there right away. Like, we're not waiting. We're not playing any games. Like, we are coming into the season. We know what the Dodgers did with Shohei. We know all of the additions that they had in their bullpen and their starting rotation. We're going to be there too. And the fact that the Braves starting rotation is struggling a little bit, and they've got some injuries, and Acuna is not what Acuna has been. The Phillies are going to be there. Then the interesting piece is the Phillies have actually benefited the last couple of years from the wild card, where they keep kind of the momentum of playing late in the season and through without real breaks.
Right. That's the part for me.
The Phillies aren't likely to be in that. I mean, if we keep going, we're not going to be in that space.
I understand, and that's the part for me. But I will say this: we play in a beautiful division with the Atlanta Braves. So if they catch fire and catch us again, we'll still be running away with the wild card anyway. You know, so it's almost a gift and a curse, because the one team that could cause us problems may not be a problem for us, because it allows us to just keep playing ball and not have to sit down. You know, so I think they know we have their number head up in the postseason anyway. They're trying to avoid us at all costs. And it's interesting, man. I tell you this much: the way you watch this team play, you don't want them to have a break, especially going into a postseason. Now, granted,
you definitely
might
don't.
be in a position where the way they look coming down the stretch, you're just like, you know what, these guys need a break, right? Like that could also be true. I mean, we're in May, right? Let's see how we look in August. So, and it's not the youngest team. They have some young players that, to your point, that are showing improving. You know, the daycare, they're out of daycare. I guess they're in pre-K, or no, they're in at least elementary school now.
They're getting close to kindergarten at this point. Yeah,
I think so. Right. So, you know, at this point, but you still got some vets out there that
is there ever a point where you might be mad, like, yo, stop pouring water on me, dog? Like, stop it. Stop.
They don't like, you know, there were other teams where you just like soak. You know what I mean? Like, they're just doing the cups.
We've been doing this for like 2 years. Like, come on, man, we get it. Like, this is your thing. I get it. Can we just like dap up? Like, is that cool? Seriously?
So, is it literally just anyone who's doing the TV interview gets the water? Is that how that works?
I mean, that's what's televised. I'm sure there are other things that are going on, but that's just what we see.
Got it. Okay. You're right. I think at that point, it's like enough is enough.
So it's usually some combination of Marsh, Stott, Bone. Usually the combination.
I know who the culprits are, but I guess my question is, like, is the only prereq of getting it simply you're the person with the mic at the end of the game?
It seems like it. It definitely seems like it.
Listen, man, I'm excited about these guys. I look forward to watching and really diving into them now that the Sixers are off my watching block, if you will. I'm not as engaged. I mean, I caught the tail end of this Knicks game. I'll probably catch the tail end of the Minnesota game that's probably going on now. But I get to really enjoy Phillies baseball, and hopefully my kids, you know, when they get home from school a couple times, they can kind of just enjoy some baseball with me. I can break it down to them. And then we go outside and play. You know, that's kind of how you help kids fall in love with the game.
Let me ask. We hit on this the other day or the other week. Are you one of those people, when Philadelphia is out, like, your interest in sports just not completely disappears, but it diminishes some?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No doubt about it.
Like this Minnesota-Denver series, Minnesota is up by 16 at the moment, and Minnesota is putting into these dudes in Denver right now. So I have it on the background. I'm not paying super close attention.
I know Gobert is not playing today. He had a birth of their.
Well, apparently neither is anybody on Denver right now, because it has not mattered. So listen, Minnesota looks like they are not waiting their turn at all. So I don't necessarily want to watch basketball, but there are certain stories that are absolutely compelling, and this is becoming one of them right now.
Got it. I will say, I mean, Ant-Man, we can go to the tapes, brother. I told you he's the next face of the league. You weren't sure. I was sure.
Oh, it was a short list. It was either he or Ja. It wasn't like I disagreed with you.
I mean, that is what you did. You said, I don't know. I think it's Ja.
Listen,
it could be, because I understand why you are selecting Ja. Ja has that dog in him. That's real. I get it. I see it. However, Ant-Man is legitimate. He is legitimate.
Oh no, it's no question he's a beat. There was never a question about it. The factors that were against him were more so he plays in Minnesota,
right,
and it's whether or not his personality is going to be like, do you want this? That's
that was the part that I said I'm starting to see. Like I saw him angry on the court a few times, right?
Yeah.
And I saw he already had like he's so charismatic. I've seen him on film already, and I've seen that dog. And I said, I'm telling you, Malik, it's going to be him. The way he's exploded, like talk about someone who's just kicked the door open, understands the opportunity. He almost feels like Jason Kelce to me a little bit. The way Jason Kelce sort of rose to prominence, like he's always been this football guy in Philadelphia, right? Big personality, a mummer, like you said, he's Philadelphia, but he capitalized in such a unique way in terms of opportunity to really get his face out there in a larger scale, and he never missed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like every time he had in that bat, him and his brother, they just always hit the ball, right? And they just keep getting opportunities now. Like he's on Monday Night Football. I think he's on I think they're getting rid of RG3 and bringing in Jason.
In the studio.
Yeah, so I look at that and I think at Anthony Edwards. And I'm like, this guy, he gets it, man. He's understanding what's happening. He understands the moment. He's making contact every time he can make contact, and he's just going to keep being elevated, and he's not going to miss. Like I could see it, where it's like he's been studying unbeknownst to everybody else. You know what I mean? And now he's ready to show you what he has. And he's going against a Kevin Durant and just schools him, and in game 4 just dunks on him. And now he's dismantling Denver.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
this is beautiful, man. He's taking the crown, and it makes you even consider if Paul George is going to be enough. Like, do we have to get younger dealing with guys like this?
That's what I was saying. I was like, you get Paul George here. I don't really know. That makes a huge. I'm seeing these dudes show up, and I'm like, these cats are not playing with you, man. They're not waiting on you. That's it. And let me go even a step further. I know that we're talking about the Phillies, whatever it is, but the Olympics are this summer. Mm-hmm. Anthony Edwards is on the Olympic roster. Okay? You don't think they're playing with a Kevin Durant, a Steph Curry, a LeBron James, with that group? He's not going to come back
knowing he's that dude.
Come on, man. He's going to burn down.
They can't touch him. And knowing that they know they can't, that they can't touch him. That's what's going to happen in wherever in France. They're going to all come back like there's a new sheriff in town.
Yeah, there's no question. He's going to just completely destroy France.
And then he's going to go to New York City, play for the Knicks.
Oh, Jesus. Well, just shoot me in the face.
Because they're not going to allow it to happen, man. They're not going to let him just be that guy in Minnesota.
Languish in Minnesota. There you go.
Bring him to New York. But I teased this episode or this topic earlier. I do want to jump into it, man. The evolution of the hip hop battles. Because what I am seeing right now, what you're seeing in terms of the Drake v. Kendrick Lamar, the word I would use is unprecedented.
Have you followed this closely?
Here's why I'm following it closer. Because I was confused. I didn't understand what was happening. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I heard about at first I thought it was J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. Like that's how I thought. That's what I first heard. And then I quickly heard that J. Cole apologized to Kendrick Lamar. And I was like, that's strange. Whatever. And then it was like all these other rappers like got in on it. And then it's like then it ultimately turned into more of like a Drake and Kendrick were now center stage. Like there was a whole lot of others, but they kind of matter, not really. But the focus now, the heavy hitters going head to head are Drake and Kendrick Lamar. But where I got confused is that people were talking, like I was hearing the mention of songs by name, but then I was like getting sent songs and I didn't understand why it seemed like I was either getting many titles or I was listening to many songs. And then I'm realizing they're actually releasing multiple songs. Like my brain wasn't catching up to what was actually taking place. I'm thinking like, I don't get it. I just don't understand. Is this the diss or is this the diss? That it's like you realize, wait, they're just dissing. Like as the diss comes out, they're going right back at it. So it's now fascinating because I'm realizing this is truly the evolution. And I don't know if you know what happened today because this is all happening in real time. It's like a soap opera. Are you aware of the latest?
They probably dropped a song while we've been talking, but go ahead. What are you going to say?
So before we started our episode tonight, what happened at least I can timestamp it that way. Before 10 p.m. Eastern time, the latest that happened was in one of the songs, Drake calls out a producer, Metro Boomin, I think his name is, and tells him beats essentially, kind of gives him the Kanye West thing. Stick to the beats, kid. Tells him to go make a drum.
I'm very familiar with this. Yes.
So then this guy comes out with a track where he raps on a track, but then tells other artists, "Go ham, y'all. This is your."
So let me give you the whole. Please. Let me give you the whole blow by blow. So let's give the timeline. The timeline is the recent timeline is that the match really starts when there was first person shooter J. Cole, and it was Drake and Kendrick wasn't on it, but they were talking about it, and there were some allusions to. So that's what kind of got it started a little bit. It really gets set off, however, on Future and Metro on a song called Like That. Kendrick goes in and he just says there's no big three, it's just me. That's it. He starts comparing himself and Drake to Prince and Michael Jackson, whatever it is, saying that Prince outlived Michael Jackson, so you take that for what it's worth. Drake comes back like a week or so later, or maybe 2 weeks later, push-ups. Song was all right. He takes some whole shots at Drake and talks about Kendrick and talks about some of his cameos, whatever it is, with like Maroon 5, as though he's not had questionable cameos, and there's a whole thing about that. And you got a whole bunch of dudes all of a sudden start taking real shots coming out of the blue, like Rick Ross shows up and calling him BBL Drizzy or whatever it is. It's ridiculous. Drake comes back again. Tailor-made freestyle. Skip that one, right? That was just all right. And then Kendrick comes back with Euphoria. Bomb gets dropped. And then before we can even get through that, he drops 616, right? Then Drake goes back and Family Matters. There was a whole bunch of stuff. Long story short, all of this is said. What you were just talking about is Metro. My kids affectionately like Metro because he did the Spider-Man soundtrack. But this dude put out, in response to him saying, to Drake saying, go make some drums, he puts out a straight instrumental, a beat, and basically says, whoever raps the illest verse crushing this ball gets a free Metro song. You're on mute. Yes, you're on mute.
Yo.
So he's now enlisted civilians to go out and say whoever just doesn't like this ball, from this coast to the far coast, from Japan to North Philly, whoever raps on this song and has the hottest verse, dissing Drake, gets a free Metro song. So now you literally just drafted everybody. This is after Drake then also alluded to the fact that he might be a pedophile, or he may actually put that information out there because he knew you were going to say something. And so Kendrick took the bait, but are you really a pedophile? I'm not really sure what's going on. Family Matters as well. So, Doug, this is now like, what are we doing at this point in time?
That talk about Howie Roseman playing chess, that move right there. I wish you would mention another producer in a rap battle. You can't do it no more. You better leave them alone.
Listen, he decided.
That's like essentially put a bounty on his head.
He put that ball, anybody in Cambodia who drops a hot 16 on this thing.
Here's what's crazy. I'm trying to explain to Samantha, and I explained it wrong because I'm like, Samantha, it's so strange. I just listened to this person rapping in French over the beat. I'm like, listen, there's this white guy on a guitar. So it's like, I don't even understand what's happening anymore, right? He's on a guitar. But now I get it. All musicians are taking a go at it.
He made the song available. I think it's on the SoundCloud page, whatever it is. So if you want, once we get done here, if you want to go drop your verse, you can.
A processed version.
Basically, anybody who hears that and decides to go out and add fuel to this fire is now in the lottery for a Metro Boomin beat.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, of all the verses you've heard, of all the songs you've heard, 2 questions. What do you think was the best, and who do you think is winning?
I think at some point in time, It's probably Kendrick by a little bit, because I think more than the actual quality of the music, because Drake's actually has some good songs too. So let me just be equitable there. But I think it's the fact that Drake tried to play it like, where you at? We ain't heard from you. You ain't respond. And then all of a sudden, Kendrick's has dropped one song, Drake drops another, and then Kendrick dropped right on top of that, right? So before we even process what was going on, it's like, oh, you thought I was asleep. No, I was planning for this. I was already writing jokes about you years ago. You just gave me reason to open it up, right? So there's that piece of it. I think 616 was cool. I think Family Matters was cool. But there's some real questions about, like, yo, is there, when you in a rap battle, I've never been in a rap battle. Been in other battles, but not a rap battle, right? Are there rules where, like, yo, you can't say these things? Like, are we at a point where, like, yo, if you gonna call somebody a pedophile, like, that might be out of bounds? If we gonna talk about your kids and your wife, is that out of bounds?
Right.
Like, because at that point in time, like, if I see you, it's gonna be a problem, right? If you start going that far, like, you have to fight somebody,
right?
Because that's where we are. We're now past the point where, like, you had a bad song.
All rap battles take it past that point.
Yeah, but like, even Ether, in my lifetime, I think Ether was the greatest one I've ever heard, right? When Ether came out, it pretty much was like Jay-Z got out of character. He ain't had nothing to respond with. Nas won it definitively. And then they end up working together. Then they end up doing songs together. I think Nas was on his label at one point in time. So, like, what does it really matter? Essentially, you're going to not like me. I'm not going to like you. We're going to make this money together. That's really what it's going to be.
Right. Yeah, no, this is gonna be an interesting one. Because I think Drake has never felt this kind of pressure. And in the song "What Not Like Us," you heard that one too as well. I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that the whole sort of Atlanta influence in terms of Drake's career, because it makes sense, like understanding who he was in terms of a TV character, right? And he makes this transition, and you know how he sort of got the cred he needed at different stages based off of like his alliances, right? Like he had to get passes, you know, because he wasn't that person. Like that's not who he was. So he was a person who was unapologetically from over here saying what's up. And they were like, oh, what's up, man? You good? You straight. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, and then as he flowed through, he just picked up all the momentum the whole time, just collecting. Now he is a conglomerate. Like Drake is a problem in reality. Like I feel like not a problem meaning like I have an issue with Drake, meaning like that big of a deal where Drake,
he's momentum. Yeah,
he is momentum. And I think one of the things that some of the artists seem to be calling him out on is like he has the power to block artists too. You know what I'm saying? Like he throws his weight around that way. And I feel like what's happening right now is that people who have had issues with how he's power played people are now just calling him out. And maybe Kendrick is like, you know, the mouthpiece for the people saying, look, we know how you do your dealings, and you know, he's gonna be our champion to kind of call you out on this. You know what I mean? I don't know. I find it fascinating because Drake is exceptional as a performer. So he revels like the way what he did to Meek Mill at the time with Back to Back. Like it was so, as a Philadelphian, just like, oh my gosh,
it hurt.
Like,
yeah, it hurt.
Not the singer. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it hurt. It hurt.
But it was like, whoa.
Let me ask you this question: do you have issue with anybody? And I don't know if this gets into a processing. Maybe this is processing adjacent.
Okay.
Do you have any issues with gatekeeping Blackness, the culture? Right? Because there's a whole, you don't say N-word anymore, right? There's a whole thing where you can't say it no more, right? And that was littered throughout a couple of the songs, right? There was a sentiment that existed from different artists, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, really? You're going to be the arbiter of that, right?
But I think part of it is that he's on wax saying it about someone, and the way he says it is where it's like, so I think that's part of it, because he's talking about some producer, and the way he says it, it's like you hear the ER, even though he's trying to say it in a way that should be like you hear ER. So it kind of just like, you know what I'm saying? And he's younger. you know. And so I feel like they're playing on. It's like they're trying to play on, tell us like who he really is. Like, y'all, this is who this guy really is. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I think that's the whole play of Kendrick Lamar. Is like, take the wool off of your eyes. This is who you're dealing with, you know. And I think in that includes not just a person who's just throwing a word around, but a person who truly wants to use it like this,
Differently.
you know. Like, this is really how he sees it, how he sees us. He's not like us, you know. Now back to your question though, I think it's all posturing. You know what I mean? Like it's all to create support, right? Like, you know, people will ride out for that cause, kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, he's right. He does do that. Wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna have people who don't care about Drake who now all of a sudden like are indifferent towards him based off of what they hear Kendrick say about him. Like that's how fickle our minds are, where it's like we can be swayed that easily.
I'm just trying to figure out in what world I'm listening to Rick Ross call him a white boy, where your Chevy at? You know what I mean? You got a nose job. Rick Ross looks like regret, dog. He looks like if cholesterol were a person, it'd be Rick Ross.
He's doing better, man.
Yo, listen, he was a corrections officer and he's on Lipitor. Don't tell me that you got comments about the way somebody appears. Like, you just no. Like, if we're gonna reduce this to the most base form of insult, which is part of the game, I get it. You ain't the one to make that joke, bro.
Unless he's making a joke because he knows he's trying to hit him where it hurts.
Listen. If you want to hurt somebody who's overweight, ask him to chase you around the block or walk upstairs. Like
if Drake is sensitive about the work he's done on himself, and Ross knows this, who cares who's throwing a rock? You know, if it's going to land, you know, the way I look at it, I would just let Kendrick go from here. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I were any other MC, I'm just gonna sit on the sidelines to just watch. You know, because I don't know. Again, I don't think it serves me. Oh, I know what I'm processing, but we can get into that because I don't know what it serves me to even get involved with a person who has the kind of potential gravity that Drake has. You know, Kendrick Lamar he's already kind of like, he's not the pop culture guy. He's like the people's champion, right? So he's in a good position where he doesn't have to rely on the stuff that Drake uniquely provides people in the game, where he's got to play that game with Drake.
To your point, is I actually really like Kendrick's music, but right. Kendrick drops an album like it's an eclipse. Like, you might catch it every 4 to 6 years,
right?
Quite honestly, and
part of it is because of how he operates as an artist.
Right. No, I get it. But part of this has been like, if you have this capacity, and I get that maybe you are private and this is not a priority for you, right? And being a public figure in that way, right? Like, I want to value you because I esteem your music, right? Like, this whole thing just seems like a real base level, and we are going real petty, real small, where you're a Pulitzer Prize winning artist, Kendrick.
But I think this is important. See, here's the thing. I think the reason Kendrick is going so hard on Drake is because Kendrick thinks Drake represents something that is really not good for hip hop.
That's
like, I think that Kendrick, for him, like, I almost feel like this will be the thing he's remembered for almost.
He's trying to go that way. I agree with you.
I feel like he's like, look, Cat Williams talked about 2024. It's time to expose him. Like, now I have enough to finally go at the guy because he was so untouchable. He was truly the Teflon Don. You couldn't even think about going at Drake because he'll just cancel everything that you got coming up next. But once there was an opportunity where it's like, okay, they're creating a lane for this to happen and not just going to straight shut me down if I say something. And now enough people know where if something were to happen, everybody was like, wait a minute, that's odd, right? So now he's like using this moment. Like, I feel like this is Kendrick Lamar's moment to reintroduce himself to the whole world. And I think like this is one of like those legendary moves for him because to me there was nothing larger than Drake.
Well,
Drake
I think that I agree with your point. I agree with your point. Like that's where I was going when you talk about you saying remove him or change the perception of him. That's kind of where I was going with like the arbiter of the culture or arbiter of gatekeeping of blackness, right? Like, yo, there are enough plagues on society. Like, do I need to remind you that cats like Tekashi 6ix9ine exist? Like, there are plenty of things that we can call out, and for whatever purpose that we allow to fester and grow. Like, Drake is not my boogeyman. It may be yours. I get what you're saying because of the size and influence that he has.
Right.
I absolutely get that.
Tekashi 6ix9ine, because here's the thing: it's like if the wool's over your eyes and he impacts more people, what's the greater threat?
Well, I don't see Drake in terms of what he has done musically, because I don't look at him as somebody who was a keeps us a party. Like if we were getting together and we were hanging out at the pool, whatever it is, like hold on, we going home, or Passion Fruit's playing in the background while we just hanging out. Like that, like that's who I take him as, right? I don't look at him as
I got you.
Yeah, I don't look at him who has like the cultural imprint as someone like a Kendrick, right? Or to whatever degree Future or whatever it is.
That's because you're an educated 43-year-old male.
Well, no, but I don't think most people look at Drake as necessarily like
I'm mad years in your life.
You are, but it's all good. I don't think most cats look at Drake as like in the class as like he's not a substantive dude, right? Like
I mean, not a cultural icon. When you say cultural influence, how substantive is the culture you're referring to?
Well, so when I say Drake's cultural, I'm talking about the idea that he is his albums have changed the way they sound, right? The way in which he has introduced different artists or different genres of music.
You're saying he doesn't live in that space anymore.
Right. So it's not necessarily like he's cultural in the sense of I have the ability, and he may be the gatekeeper in some senses, but he's let a lot of dudes in. He might have kept some cats out, whatever it is, but I don't look at him as necessarily like some kind of fundamental touchstone on these issues. He's not who I would go to, like if God forbid CNN happens and we need somebody's viewpoint. I don't want to hear Drake's. Like, oh my God, what's Ja Rule thinking?
But I don't want to hear any of these guys though.
I'm more likely to hear Kendrick. That's what I'm saying.
But Malik, wait a minute. Come on now. You're talking about it's like the whole conversation about conscious rappers. Of course, we would probably want to hear from those guys when it matters most, and not the guys that got 1,000,002 spins. But the reality is, conscious rappers are down here generally in terms of the totem pole of influence, right? Like those who know them, but most people don't know them. Like that's the whole point. Kendrick Lamar is the biggest of that group. He's part of the Wale and the Kid Cudi, and you know what I mean, like the Fiasco, and like he's cut from that kind of cloth. But he was like enough people understood and mainstream enough where it's like he has a bigger audience and a bigger platform, but he's still cut from there.
No, I get it.
I get it. Generally speaking, CNN's not going to put the microphone on those people because like those aren't the people they actively promote anyway.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why Drake's not a threat to me though, because Drake also
he's a threat to our children in terms of the influence. Like you say, he's not a threat to you because you won't be persuaded by Drake, but he'll get whatever airtime. And again, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on Drake. I'm not like this is a theoretical conversation. To me, though, it comes down to influence, and I think that's what Kendrick Lamar is battling more against is the fact that you have this type of person who has this kind of influence, yes, on other cultures, but also influencing the hip hop culture. And all he's trying to make it plain to people is that what he shows you is not even his own. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't get that from the mud.
I guess people just take him much more seriously than I do because he's fluff to me. And I don't think people
take. That's what he said his rap. He's like, we much prefer the singing Drake than the tough guy, right? Like,
I didn't think most. I guess maybe I don't understand it because I don't think most people look at Drake as like, yo, like he might be a mood, he might be the party, whatever it is.
To some of these rappers, in my opinion, I think Drake is just the fly guy that keeps winning, and it rubs them.
And I agree with that.
Guy, but because he plays in their circles. Like that's the issue. If he didn't play in their circles, I don't think they'd be coming at him. But he plays in their circles. He messes with their women. Like he's diabolical. Like let's call it straight. Like I understand how we look at him because we don't have any relationship with Drake.
Sure, you know,
in their world, he's willing to turn things upside down and kind of just hit him with the peace sign on the way out the door. You know what I'm saying? Like he seems to be that kind of dude who keeps getting away with it time and time again. And it seems like the industry doesn't even know what to do with Drake.
I don't think it's an industry problem.
Like, boom.
I don't think it's an industry problem. I agree with the way you just framed it, right? And so if that's the case, then that it is a their problem.
It is. It's a their problem.
It's definitely a their problem. I just want to be like, look, the only thing I want Drake for.
I agree with you there. This is not like Biggie and Pac, right?
Right.
Like, yo, no.
All I want to know is,
and this is interesting.
If I'm hanging out at the pool, can I play Drake? That's all I want to know. Like, that's all I care about. That's all I care about. That's it. That's it. Because the reality, if I got like a 30 song playlist, like I might have like 2 or 3 Kendrick songs on there, maybe. And I'm a Kendrick fan, but I know that's not for everybody. Drake's gonna pop up a few more times. I'm just keeping it real with you. Because Drake took your girl, you gonna ruin it for everybody.
No doubt nobody can play Drake.
Like, yo, I just want to play Drake at a barbecue. That's all I want to do.
Like, if you just can't play their music anymore, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you play their music, everybody look at you like, really, sir? Really?
I just want to play him. I just want to be able to hang out with my boys, have a drink.
Catalog.
Yeah, I just want to be able to play back to back. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to go to the gym and play Energy real quick. Like, that's all I want to do. I don't look at him for like correspondence on like what's going on in Gaza. Like, I just want to be able to work out to a couple songs. That's it.
That's it. That's all, folks. So let's listen. Whatever this is going on, we just want to know: can we still listen to the music? Right? We understand it's personal. I think it's fair to say that this particular battle does not impact everyone else. You know, obviously Kendrick came out of the woodworks because he had something on his chest. Like he was just waiting for time and space and opportunity because no one saw this coming at all.
Can I play passion fruit at the crib with during a barbecue? That's all I want to know, Sam.
So that's our message to you rappers. Can we still play the music regardless of the outcome? Yes or no?
That's it.
Or you know what I'm saying? Are we messing up somebody's set? You know what I'm saying? Am I in danger? Are my kids in danger? Am I subject to retaliation if I play the wrong MC? You know, like now, granted, I'm not silly enough to not visit my cousin out in Cali and know that I'm be Kendrick heavy. You know, I'm not that guy. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, back in Philly, you know what I mean? Like, can I have my repertoire of music?
Can I ask, like, do white people we need a white correspondent. Do white people battle like this? Like, do Kelly Clarkson and Pink
did Eminem and Machine Gun Kelly have like a little bit of a?
Well, let me be more specific.
Hip-hop battles this is like that's part of hip hop though. Like that's how
that's a hip hop thing. But like, did Celine Dion go hard at like Mariah Carey when Mariah was up and coming?
Did Whitney go hard at somebody, or somebody go hard at Whitney?
Whitney was on that rock. So I mean, like crack will make you do some amazing things. What is that? What my man say? Cocaine's a hell of a drug. Come on.
All right. So what am I processing? Because I what I'm not about to do is talk about my girl Whitney Houston out of New Jersey.
Listen, love Whitney,
but speaking of someone, probably if you know, God rest her soul, she was still here, she'd probably be around the same age of Mike Tyson, right? Yeah. I got to go back to what I'm processing. I'm really concerned about this whole thing of them changing it to a pro fight, which means that it's 8-ounce gloves now, not the 16-ounce boys. Three rounds. There's a clip of.
Wait, set the groundwork. So you got.
I'm sorry. So we're talking about Mike Tyson going against Jake Paul on July 20th. It was supposed to be an exhibition fight. Mike Tyson put in a request for it to be a pro fight, like a sanctioned type fight, and they've made the agreement. So now this is a professional fight. So they've changed it from 10 or 12-ounce gloves to 8-ounce gloves, so you can feel it. and from 2-minute rounds to 3-minute rounds, right? Mike is still a 60-year-old man. And I'm really concerned because Jake Paul is much younger. He's much bigger of a person. And even though he's not as skilled, right now we're looking at a situation where allegedly Ryan Garcia took PEDs to win his bout. Whether we believe it or not, that's what is on the table. To me, I can see a scenario where the Paul dude gets a little bit extra motivation to then just pummel an all-time great. Because here's the reality. Even if it comes out after that there was something that was amiss in terms of whether or not he was truly clean and there was something, the damage is done. The damage is done. And I just think that we're setting ourselves up to where a legendary figure can almost go out in a way that Ali went out to Larry Holmes when they fought in Vegas, and where Holmes didn't want to do it. Holmes really was trying to put Ali down out of his misery. Ali's pride wouldn't let him fall, and so he ended up just getting hammered in that fight and was never the same person afterwards. I'm concerned like that for Mike Tyson because Mike is a prideful person, and if he is the one who's requesting it to be a pro fight, what Jake Paul essentially said, he's like, look, if it was an exhibition fight, that's my guy. I'm gonna approach it one way, but a pro fight, yo, I'm going at him. I'm not holding back if it's a pro fight. And as soon as I heard that, I'm just like, I don't like this. I don't like it.
So to your point, it's fat. So do you think you have the majority view?
I have no idea. If you're asking me, no. I think a lot of people think Mike Tyson is Mike Tyson. They're discarding the fact that he's 60 and not 18 when he first came on the scene. He was 18 when he first came on the scene. People are not remembering.
To your point, Jake Paul is the prohibitive favorite on the prohibitive betting favorite.
He's gonna win, man. He's gonna win.
He is the depending on where you're looking at online, right? You can get really. I mean, if you want to try to make some money, you're gonna have to bet on Mike Tyson because you're looking at minus 200, minus 180. I'm seeing numbers minus 235. Jake Paul is the prohibitive favorite against Mike Tyson. Let me see if I can find some more listings here. So DraftKings has him at minus 180, which means you got to bet that to get $100.
I'm telling you, he looks like the kid. What was the boxing Rocky 4 or 5? Not 4.
Well, 4 was Drago.
Not Drago.
5 was Tommy Gunn.
Tommy Guns. He looks like Tommy Guns, man. He doesn't look like just some YouTuber anymore. The dude is big. He looks like a WWE wrestler. He looks like Tommy Guns. I'm like, and Mike Tyson's 60. This is not a good look. I'm sorry, folks. I'm against it. That's what I'm processing. Is when I heard the news that they made a change to make it a sanctioned pro fight for a 60-year-old man. Shame on boxing. Shame on not protecting him. Shame on not protecting his legacy, and shame for letting him go out just for a farce for Netflix. It's just, I don't know. I just think it's shameful all the way around, man. I don't like it. I think Mike Tyson could have done other things for money than let this guy potentially beat him in a ring in front of millions and millions of people. I don't like
it. And the fight is July
20th.
July 20th. That's going to be a must-watch moment.
I do not like it at all. Everything about it just smells. It doesn't pass any sniff test.
So would you bet like $20 on Mike?
I would. I'd probably put $100 on Mike.
Okay. To just catch Jake Paul.
Just to catch Jake Paul, just one time, just to, because if he does it, he does it. Just to want to have my spirit say my spirit was behind Mike.
I might have to, because Texas doesn't allow for sports betting, so I might have to send you via courier.
Tell me you're going to do it though, can you?
Huh?
Can you tell me you're going to do it?
I can ask someone to place a bet, but I cannot place the bet.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So unless I went into one of the Choctaw Nation casinos, right, on the native reservation up towards Dallas, there is no
Doesn't
casino.
allow betting in Texas. I wouldn't think that at all.
Texas is a godforsaken land. I mean, shout out to Houston, Austin, and parts of San Antonio, but the rest of it is a godforsaken place.
I gotta visit, man. I don't have a true understanding of that state.
No one really does. No one really does.
That I don't.
It's like Philly almost in a way, right? Like there are certain neighborhoods that you probably just wouldn't go to, right? Like you probably, I'm not gonna say for you, but you probably wouldn't go too far down the Northeast, right? Probably wouldn't go out that way, right? There's a line like right, probably about like Street Road, Warminster. Like we're not gonna keep going down too far past East Hampton.
Right.
Yeah, there's parts that's like, you may not want to go out that way. You might not want to go out that way.
Understood.
Right. So, you've got your Houston, Austin, San Antonio kind of triangle there. Maybe Dallas, if you see a vibe, it's not really my vibe, but whatever. And that's probably it. Galveston's kind of cool adjacent. Oh, they just call some real straights from Charles Barkley, but it is what it is.
I was like, wait a minute, Galveston, it sounds familiar. Y'all got
Galveston. He was not wrong. He was not wrong. I've definitely been, and I've definitely not touched.
Send the Pelicans there. He's like, no, they go to Cancun, they go to Galveston.
Yeah, I was definitely not getting in that water. I love my children too much. So
what are you processing, my friend?
Man, you know what? So tomorrow is the first game of the Little League playoffs for my 8-year-old, or my 7-year-old, but it's on the 8U team. It is the first game of the playoffs. It is a double elimination bracket that has the potential to run right now, if nothing else changes, until the end of May, somewhere in the mid-20th, 23rd, 4th, 5th, something like that. That is every single night. That is if no rain, which we know it will rain. That means if the field conditions remain playable. But we are going to be going for at least 3 weeks. I will tell you that the amount of text messages from coaches and parents who have had questions about what their second graders' playoff situation looks like has just been outrageous.
In terms of where they are in the lineup,
where they are, when are we playing, what's going on, what are the conditions like, do you have an update? It's like, are we going to practice? Are we going to get extra practice in? Let me remind you, this is 7-year-old kids, maybe 8-year-olds in some cases, Little League. Okay. So when you talk about Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, there's no one that should be placing bets on this. That's acceptable, not on this. Okay. And so in all of this, it has been beyond the point of absolutely exhausting. There was one story from a weekend or so ago, in which one of the parents, not in Little League, but in a neighboring tournament, actually accosted an umpire, followed him to his vehicle, prevented him from getting into his car and leaving the field because parents were so upset with calls he made. That were like, whether you disagree with the call, whatever, but it was a call that he made. So clearly they disagree. They followed him out, prevented him from leaving, let him know, threatened him, the whole deal. The team coach had to then put out a press release, okay, saying that we don't represent in this way. Our organization does not condone, blah, 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 blah. We'll keep striving, so on and so forth. Like, what are we talking about, people? This is beyond acceptable. And this is the type of example that we are setting for our kids. So the next time I talk to you, we may or may not have gotten a playoff game in, depending on the weather. I am sure that we will have had multiple practices and multiple text messages about strategy and outline. Like, I have a lineup already set. I'm already telling certain kids, like, you're not going to play the same amount of times that you played in the regular season. We in the postseason now. It's changing. Mom and dad need to understand it. Don't bring your family because they're not going to see you playing second base. You're going to be in right field in the way, way back corner of right field. That's where we are. And that's okay. Because that's literally the expectation. Like, why would you play a child in this position? You know he's a hazard, or he's dangerous, or he's not good. I'm sorry, it's Little League, bro. What are we doing? What are we doing? We're actually chasing umpires to cars. Seriously.
Yeah. You know, I think about, excuse me. Sorry, folks. we're wrapping up shortly, but I think about a conversation I had with a classmate of ours whose son is actually about to start high school, and he says, Sam, here's what I want to tell you, bro. Like, be a be a parent that has the joy of being a parent, right? Because he knows how much I love sports, and I think his passion for the game, like, may have caused the relationship within the son to be like some on the coach side, and it's like I feel it seems as if he's saying like I wish it was just dad, you know what I mean? But I can't just be dad because I'm not just dad, you know? And I think about stuff like that, right? Because coming up, I've observed different types of parents in terms of sports. Play sports my whole life, and when you play at a high level, a lot of the kids who play at that level is because their parents are heavily involved in them getting there. You know, I
Yeah.
was kind of an outlier where it's like other people took it on themselves to make sure I had the opportunities, and my parents kind of funded it, but didn't really know what was going on, right? Like it wasn't an interest of theirs, and if someone else didn't identify it, I would have been playing the piano. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
that's the reality. So to see parents who had that kind of involvement, knowing I didn't come from that background, it was interesting because I always was like, man, I can't wait to be that kind of parent, you know? However, I also observed a few parents where it's like, because of the relationship I had with their sons, I knew how much of a burden it was. Where it's like
It's
they want to
intense.
have fun and they can't because the expectation is so high that they go into every game not wanting to make any mistakes. With me, it's like it's inevitable. You know what I'm saying? And let alone I've never had pressure from family to not make mistakes on the basketball court. Like, I couldn't imagine that kind of pressure from family because it was so foreign to me. Like anything I did, they thought I did well because they didn't know what I was doing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like good, bad, or indifferent, they're just clapping. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, no, I fouled somebody. You know what I'm saying? But like, if I come from that background and now I'm observing someone who's much better than me, but seemingly can't get right in their parents' eyes, it's like, whoa, that's crazy. Like they're excellent and they can't get praised for anything that they do. You know what I'm saying? And they only get chastised for what they do wrong. And I watch that relationship. So it's like, I don't want that one. I want that one. Right.
It's a hard balance
Yeah.
because I was not necessarily I was very late to baseball in high school. I didn't start playing baseball until ninth grade. And then I didn't really know how to play. And then now seeing it differently, I became a much better baseball player outside of high school. So the same dudes that we were playing against in high school, like when we were playing in Legion or whatever it was, I was a much better player there against the same group than I was for Cheltenham, for example,
Got it.
which was really odd. But then after that, continuing to play like a little men's league or whatever it was, I was a much better player and I learned a lot. And then playing a little bit like club baseball, whatever it is later on, I was a better player there. I was just really late to it. And then the challenge becomes is I've coached my sons in some way, either head or assistant they're coaching. And you end up seeing the fact that if they're talented, but you also recognize they're not being coached in a way to foster that, where it's like I just don't coach sometimes so that I can just be dad and have fun. The tension then becomes where it's like, yo, this coach isn't helping you at all. And I quick to see it. And then when I see the frustrations that my sons have, where it's like, now I need to find a way to help and transition from being like, hey, let's just have the catch or let's just take some PP to, oh no, we've got to get ourselves balanced and finish through the ball. And all of a sudden we've got to make sure that our timing is good and we're landing evenly, like those kinds of things, right? Different conversation. So I would love it. I would love to be just the parent for as long as possible. But sometimes you find yourself drawn into it because you've got a real toxic environment around them or an inept environment around them. And
See, to me, that's still parenting.
it's
That's
Sam, it doesn't feel like
parenting.
it. I will tell you it doesn't feel like it.
Mm,
It doesn't feel like it sometimes because I am so because when you are parenting, it is I'm not necessarily thinking about maybe I should be, but I'm usually when we're dealing with school, I'm trying to help you with a problem.
mhm.
I'm trying to help you either learn, grow, study, improve in that space. When I'm resolving a disciplinary matter at home, I'm addressing that issue and trying to help understand the way in which we carry ourselves. When we are having a catch, I just want to have the catch. But now if I'm parent, that's parenting. We're just enjoying each other's time in a leisure athletic activity. Coaching becomes, hey, did you point your shoulder and finish through with balance? Right? That's a different thing with a different set of pressure than just parenting when I'm doing something athletic with you. And so I would love to be able to parent more because parenting doesn't concern yourself like, well, you might develop a bad habit in your swing. You might develop a bad habit in your jump shot, right? So even though we're just shooting around, don't shoot it like that because you don't want to carry that shot into the game, right? Parenting doesn't worry about that.
So it's funny. My son today, I went outside to play catch with him. Threw a football. He's 4. Threw the football. He tried to catch it with his face, and we go inside because he's like,
Right.
like my fault, son. I guess we can't play football, right? So he sucks it up. Like I never tell him to suck it up, like because it hit him in his face, right? But it was just like, but I did kind of hit him with, are we done? You know what I mean? Like, okay,
Are you gonna try this again?
And so he went inside, but then he came back out, and we started. He found. Remember the game? Is you have like the baseball and then the Velcro pads.
Yeah.
So he found that somewhere, right? So I'm like, all right, perfect. I taught him how to shoot a jump shot. So he's all about that, right? So when it was kind of throw the baseball, he's like this, daddy. So he's like mimicking it, and I'm like, well, kind of. So I told him how to hold the baseball to throw. The problem is that like he's still not releasing it. He's still thinking of basketball, so it's going down. You know what I'm saying? He's still hitting me with the follow through, and I'm like, no, the hands up is only for the shot. Like we're not shooting shots now, but it's like in his mind, it's like it's a ball. Like this, daddy. I'm like, ah. So here's where it's like now I got to coach him and throwing a baseball, which is different from a basketball.
Right.
Not everything. I can just be like, good job. It's like, well, not exactly, son.
Right. And sometimes you just want to be like, just good job, man.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, but then you're like, oh wait a minute, but you didn't point your shoulder and your foot was pointed over that direction and your throw was terrible. So now I got to coach you on your throw.
Boxing. We signed over for boxing and just getting him through his jab and the cross, like understanding the footwork and the terminology at 4. Granted, he's way the youngest person in his class, which is tough for him because, he's the youngest person and he was the youngest person and only one of 2 new people. So everyone else is more familiar with everything. So him coming to speed by himself is not possible. Obviously, I got to help him at home. But then it gets to a point where he's just like, he doesn't want to do it. So it's like, do we push through it? There's like, what's that line to your point where it's just like, okay, where does dad step in and say, all right, he's had enough because he is only 4 and all the other kids are 6 and have a different level of understanding and desire for this. He's just trying to have fun because he likes punching. You know what I'm saying? So when do I kind of dial it back and say, okay, we went over this enough today. It's okay. Let's have fun again,
It's a real fine line because you go from parenting to coaching to fanaticism quickly.
Especially when you feel like he got skills, because I know my boy got it in him. And I know it's gonna be hard for me, but I want him to have the relationship where he can always come to me, know that I'll push him, but you know what I'm saying? Like he can still trust me with how he's feeling about it. That's the relationship I want. Where he knows I can push him, but he can still trust me with how he feels about what I'm putting him through.
Yeah. I would tell you, I have a really good friend of mine. He and his wife, and she's a therapist, and she said that one of the things she was talking about with her son was how I need for you to trust me with the small things. And so her point was when we were having conversations, and I react in an extreme or particularly assertive or aggressive way that might be off-putting to that young person, child, whomever, student. She's in school, so sometimes it's a student. How am I going to expect them to come to me later on when there's a major issue, something that they're really dealing with that's completely separate and apart from like finishing a baseball throw or follow through with your jab or anything like that? And it just resonated because sometimes the frustrations from going from parent to coach to parent to disciplinarian to chef to landscaper to bath time, whatever, to coach, sometimes those frustrations bleed over for me, but not for him. Or from dealing with parents on his teams bleed into interactions with them. And so therefore it becomes a lot harder all of a sudden for them to trust me with a small thing, because I've already been trying to work so hard on other areas that may affect their lives that I am not in the right space to take anything else on. And so when they come to me like I'm having a hard time with a friend, I've already been thinking about your friends for an hour and a half and dealing with it all as a coach, not as a father or as a friend in that moment or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And so it's a hard thing, man. It's a hard thing.
It is. And I know it's just begun for me, because he's like, Dad, I want to play soccer next. So we're playing soccer a little bit outside. Like, man, this kid is a natural at this stuff, and I want him to have fun as a natural, but at the same time, I want him to be the best version of himself as well. So at some point, I'm going to have to get in the coaching hat a little bit to help him. It's like, what kind of father would I be if I just didn't try to give him any pointers, you know what I mean? And just sat on the sideline the whole time if I knew better, and he's asking me, and that's the part. He's like, Daddy. So now it's like, all right. So that, I appreciate that one, man, because it's like, it's something that I think about all the time. What kind of parent and father do I want to be to a child who gets active in sports? That's a big thing for me, because my dad, in terms of my sports relationship, he did not have any relationship with me when it came to sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to have a relationship with my son when it comes to sports, but it's like, what kind of father-son relationship will that be is something I'm very conscious of.
Yeah. And does it in any way affect negatively? Does it detriment my relationship with them kind of in a larger scale? Yeah.
Exactly. So
yeah.
Good topics, brother. This was good, man. So I just happened to take a look. It's a 30-point game.
Yeah, listen, man. I'm telling you, these dudes are serious.
A 30-point game.
I have not paid attention to it at all, but I will tell you that the fact that these dudes really felt confident last year, and they were open about it. Minnesota said we gave Denver their best series in the playoffs. Right? They were open about it. They were not at all timid about going back here and playing Denver again. And here we are. And these dudes are doing this with Naz Reid and Karl-Anthony Towns.
And I wish Naz Reid, if the Sixers could have figured out a way to get him on our roster, I think he could have been a difference for us.
Oh, there's no question.
He is such just a glue player at 6'9" who can put the ball in the hole, hit the three-point shot, defend bigs, athletic, young enough, cerebral. Those are the type of players that we got to get more of. We got to get those type of guys on our team. That's how we make a real playoff push. We can't just have shooters. Can't build a team like that. Not saying that the Sixers did last year. Unfortunately, you get rid of Marcus Morris. You don't have Robert Covington available. Melton, who's a two-way player, is not available. And so it's like you're relying heavy on the guys that you know. And unfortunately, one included Tobias Harris, who gave you 0 points in his final game.
We almost went the whole time without talking about him. We went the whole time without talking about him. Honestly,
I can't end without saying that it was his final game in the 76ers uniform, and he gave you a goose egg in 29 minutes of play. And I remember watching that third quarter saying, why is he still in the game? Why are they still playing Tobias Harris?
I think I don't know if I
ham in the first half. He went ham in the first half. I'm thinking it's got to be a short lease on Tobias so you can get Buddy in the game. Change your rotation, get Buddy in the game, because Tobias is not doing anything. He played Tobias the whole third quarter.
Yeah, the game was lost in the third quarter. We just had no continuity on offense. We had no plan. We had no flow. It was terrible.
It was Doc Rivers all over again. So, the jury's still out with me when it comes to Nick Nurse. We'll see what happens next year. I think, again, at least our GM was as forthright as he could be in terms of the plan and strategy. I think he opens himself up to a lot of options. However, one option that he must hit on is getting that wing who can score in the playoffs. That's what he said specifically. So that's all we can really grade him on, if he gets that guy. And if it's the right guy and the right fit.
Expect them to be aggressive early. And if they're not, it's going to be a trade then.
Yeah.
I cannot see them allowing for names to come off the board because they've got too much other work to do.
Do you think a Paul George and Caruso is a possibility? Do we have that kind of money, or not really? Because we got to sign Maxey.
You got to sign. Well, no. You Caruso. You got to trade. You either have to sign and trade assets, or you have to absorb them into your contracts, your cap.
Right.
So the Sixers probably have that flexibility. If you're not going to send money out, that means you're just bringing all of that money in. And I don't know what Caruso makes offhand, but I would imagine that would be very difficult to go sign Paul George to max, bring Caruso in without trading anything out, right? And then Maxey, and then all your other pieces.
Because also Embiid is up for a 3-year 193 extension.
He's going to get that too.
He's going to get that. So it's like Maxey could either be 5 for 205 or like 5 for 239. Whatever it is, he's going to get it.
Well, the question is if he makes any kind of All NBA, and I don't think he will.
He should.
All NBA?
Maxey?
Listen, he was fantastic, but All NBA is a lot. All NBA is a lot.
It's what, 15 guys.
So you're looking at, let's look at it quickly. All NBA. So you're looking at, what is it? You're looking at 6 guys potentially, right? So you're all
Jason Tatum, Nikola Jokic. Well, I don't know if Joel Embiid's not eligible because he didn't play enough games. Eligible. So Nikola Jokic, Jason Tatum. I guess Anthony Edwards is an All NBA player.
All NBA player, definitely an All NBA player.
Right.
I would guess, right? And I don't have a list of anybody in front of me at all. Huh?
Jalen Brunson becomes one this year.
Probably maybe. So. Steph Curry is probably one again.
LeBron James.
So the way they do it is they do front court and back court players. So you got some flexibility there. There were the votes, I believe, have been submitted. We just haven't learned the teams yet. So let me see if I can find some of the folks who have voted. Let me say, this is a whole other conversation.
And maybe this is a conversation for another night in the interest of time.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, so we got time to get into all NBA stuff. So I mean, the playoffs are still going. We're only in the second round. Minnesota looks real. Anthony Edwards looks like he wants to take the crown and be Michael Jordan's son for real, for real. Here's the beautiful part about Anthony Edwards' game. It's the stylistic nature of basketball that is so beautiful to watch because it's the styles that you can appreciate about someone's game. Anthony Edwards looks like Michael Jordan. That's why he's getting a comparison, not just simply because he's a 2-guard, not because Michael Jordan, obviously his first couple of years have look nothing like Anthony Edwards. It's because of how he approaches the game. It's like in your mind's eye, it's like you've seen that before. And that is what makes him so special and what makes this so interesting. And if he starts killing in the playoffs the way Mike did, game over, man. If he just becomes that force from the wing position in the playoffs, can dance on guys, can post up, and is rack attacking, come on.
My favorite thing he did was when he said to Karl Anthony Towns, he was like, "Yo, just stop fouling." Like there was a question about Karl Anthony Towns getting into trouble, whatever it is, in the first round. He's like, "Just stop fouling. Just stop it." It was like, yo, he checked him. He said it in a joking manner, but it wasn't a joke.
It wasn't a joke. It's like, stop. We're trying to win. It's like, stop fouling. We need you on the floor. He's like, we need him on the floor. And well, see, you might put me in a tangent, but that's leadership, though. That is leadership. That is the demonstration of leadership that Joel Embiid also needs. The question is, will Maxey ever say that to Joel Embiid? I think Maxey will say he's really good at basketball. That's how he deferred. He's like, he's really good at basketball.
And then give him a high five and a hug.
That's how he's going to change his heart. Just hug him out. You know what I mean? But Anthony Edwards, he'll talk to him. Jimmy, listen, we have a lot to talk about over the summer because this Jimmy Butler thing is also fascinating. You know, all I know is at some point you need the executives to make the sound decisions. You can't just let these players dictate what happens next.
Well, Pat Riley, either we are setting everybody up for some kind of like subtle, like sneaky trap, whatever it is, make it seem like he's on the way out the door. But it just seems really strange that all of a sudden Pat Riley just comes out and torches this man. Like,
it doesn't seem strange to me because Pat Riley is about the culture. And I think Jimmy Butler has positioned himself in a way where there's a hierarchy in Miami. And I think Pat Riley has the type of guys where it's also necessary to reestablish the hierarchy. Like Pat Riley wants dogs, but dogs are dogs. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like you need that alpha to ensure that they all remain where they're supposed to be because they're dogs.
I don't disagree with that. I think it's just strange it was handled publicly. That was it. That we became aware of it.
It was a public statement.
Yeah. No, I know Jimmy Butler's was. I'm surprised that Pat Riley chose to handle that publicly.
I'm trying to play devil's advocate, but I don't disagree, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because
that's all. I see your point.
You never know what's going on in Heat culture. It's all behind closed doors.
It's the Secret Service down there.
And we've heard from their players before, but it's all behind closed doors. So I think the writing might be on the wall with one Jimmy Butler.
He might be trying to be like, you know what? We're going to make you think. We're going to try to lay a Drake/Kendrick Lamar trap and make you think this is really the problem, drive your price and your attention up, and now all of a sudden you're trading 2 first-round picks for Jimmy Butler, and we are out of underneath the contract.
How about that? And the Sixers will fall hook, line, and sinker for it.
Who knew that Pat Riley was part of the Drake Kendrick beat?
That can be healthy in the second half of the season. That's all I ask for. Jimmy Butler on this team, we don't lose to the Knicks.
No, not we don't lose to the Knicks.
Because he gives you what Jason Hart does. He's that type. He's version of Jason Hart before Jason Hart.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Jimmy Butler was. And then all of a sudden he turned into more of an offensive minded player. But he was the Jason Hart at 6'8". He did all the other things.
I can't talk about the Sixers anymore. It's gonna hurt my heart, man. I can't deal with these dudes right now.
Well, folks, as you can see, I hope you enjoyed our show tonight. Went on a little bit long, but we had a lot to get off our chest. We had a lot of our Sixers are officially over. We had to spend time to talk about the official end of our 76ers. 2023-2024 season has come to an end. First round exit to the New York Knicks. Series loss 4-2. So next year, we'll see what happens. Phillies, best team in all of baseball right now, folks. Best team in baseball. And you got to stay tuned because we're going to keep breaking down what they're doing week after week. Got a team of dudes, and they're trying to get it done this year around, man. So hope you enjoyed the show. Please make sure you hit the like and subscribe on your way out. Without further ado, until next time, folks. Peace.